It was a Saturday. It was Christmas Day in Kansas City. It was 1971, and the weather was mild. It was the AFC Divisional Playoff game at the old Municipal Stadium. The Miami Dolphins were in town. The Kansas City Chiefs, Super Bowl champs 2 years before, didn't make it to the big game the previous year, striving to return. According to Chiefs historian, quote, the 1971 Chiefs featured no less than 11 Pro Bowl players and the league's leading receiver in Otis Taylor. The defense was tops, as was the kicking game, with place kicker Jan Stenerud and punter Gerald Wilson. With about a minute left in regulation, the Dolphins tied the score. The Chiefs received the ensuing kick, and Ed Podolak ran it back to give Jan Stenerud a 31-yard field goal attempt. Stenerud never missed from that range, but he missed that one. So the game was tied at the end of regulation and went into overtime. The first overtime quarter ended still in a tie after Stenerud had another potential game-winning field goal blocked. After 22 minutes, 40 seconds into overtime, Dolphins kicker Gary Yepremian kicked a field goal through the uprights, giving the Dolphins a 27-24 win. Pro Football References ranks it in the top NFL's 100 greatest games as number 18. It was the last NFL game played in Municipal Stadium, and the two teams went in different directions in the following years. It was the last playoff game the Chiefs would be in for 15 years. The Dolphins, however, went on the following season to post a perfect no-loss season, still unmatched and known as the perfect season. The next overtime playoff game the Chiefs would be in was against the Pittsburgh Steelers in 1993, which the Chiefs won. The next overtime playoff game the Chiefs would be in is one we probably remember well. In 2018 against the New England Patriots. Pro Football References ranks it in the NFL's 100 greatest games as number 36. What we likely remember about that game was the Patriots winning the coin toss, taking the kickoff, scored, and won the game. Mahomes and the Chiefs never got to touch the ball and have a possession. But that was the way the rules were then. 3 years later, the Buffalo Bills came to face the Chiefs in a divisional playoff game that would later be referenced as 13 seconds. With 13 seconds left in regulation, Mahomes and the Chiefs drove 44 yards to set up a field goal that sent the game into overtime. This time, the Chiefs had the ball first, marched down the field and scored, winning the game. Buffalo, this time, never got to touch the ball and have a possession in overtime. After that season, the overtime rules were changed going forward, so each team would get a possession. The first time the new rule would come into play was in a game we watched 3 weeks ago, with the Chiefs defeating the 49ers in overtime, as they were the second team to have possession. Don't you think there's some kind of poetry in all that? Starting in 1920, the NFL used college football rules for the first 12 years. Then in 1932, the NFL created a rules committee and started changing the rules little by little. Aren't we glad they did? If they hadn't changed the rules, according to NFL.com, this is how the game would look today. A quarterback can't throw a pass unless he's at least 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage. That would greatly reduce a lot of Mahomes' scrambling the passes, wouldn't it? Oh, and the offense begins some plays just a yard from the sideline. Or how about this? The offense is penalized for throwing more than one pass during a series of downs. Player substitutions are prohibited. And there's no communication from the sideline allowed. And also, players from both teams could grab their opponent's face mask at will. Yeah, the game would look very different, wouldn't it? Outside of football, I've come to find out that there are some rules or laws that probably should be changed, or at least you have to wonder about them. For example, in Colorado, it's illegal to keep a couch on your porch. Yeah. And pickle producers in Connecticut must ensure that their pickles are able to bounce if dropped. In Florida, fines will be assessed for illegally parking an animal, such as elephants, camels, and horses. And in Hawaii, it's illegal to place a coin in one's ear. So I guess their magicians gonna have to focus on rabbits and hats, right? Did you know that in Indiana it's illegal to ride a horse above 10 miles per hour? So I guess Indiana's the place for fast cars, and Kentucky's the place for fast horses. Yeah. Speaking of Kentucky, there it's illegal for a woman to marry the same man 4 times. Yeah, right. Yeah, I'm not going to touch that one with a 10-foot pole. On the other hand, there are probably some laws that shouldn't be changed. For example, in Alabama, it's illegal to drive a car while blindfolded. Mm-hmm. Yep. In Idaho, it's illegal to sweep debris into the streets. You know how sometimes it's difficult to choose the right present to give someone? Well, the state of Montana narrows the choices a little bit. In Montana, it's illegal to give someone a rat. And here in Missouri, bear wrestling is illegal. So if you're planning on wrestling a bear, better go out of state. With Easter coming up, if anyone is planning on going to Ohio, just be aware that it's illegal in Ohio to sell color-dyed chicks. Well, I hope that if anyone's planning to going to any of those states, they know what the laws are. Well, that's kind of what God was doing for the Israelites when he gave them the Ten Commandments while they were on their journey from Egypt to the Promised Land. For the previous 400 years, the Israelites had to obey the Egyptian laws. And it didn't matter how unfair or crazy the laws were, they had no say in the matter. But traveling for 40 years and eventually settling in the Promised Land, God knew they needed some basic, fundamental guidelines on how to live peacefully, safely, and fruitfully. God chose to give 10 rules. Now, he could have chosen, of course, any number, but he chose 10. After all, we do have 10 fingers and 10 toes and are asked to be the hands and feet of Christ, aren't we? Well, when we look at these 10 commandments, thousands of years later, I don't think they need any changing. Do you? It's all right there. If everyone, I mean everyone, could follow them, I don't think we'd have wars. We wouldn't have Hamas attacking Israel. We wouldn't have tragedies like we saw after the Chiefs rally. No murders, no burglaries. Divorce rates would be near zero and life would be safe and fruitful the way God wanted. Jesus changed the way things had been done at the temple in Jerusalem. When he entered the temple the first time in his public ministry, he didn't cordially convene a meeting like the NFL Rules Committee might do about changes. No, he poured out the coins of the money changers, overturned their tables, and made a whip and drove the animals out of the temple. Merchants, under the eyes of the Jewish priests, had turned the temple into a marketplace. Many biblical scholars refer to Jesus' attitude as righteous anger. Jesus was also angry at the Pharisees when he healed a man's shriveled hand on the Sabbath, and they didn't approve. Therefore, I suggest it's okay to be angry when someone is violating God's laws, as we saw recently after the Chiefs rally. But it is vital that we channel that anger into energy to fix the problem at the core. We have a great opportunity to do that here in our mission field, affecting the hearts and minds of children and youth and parents in our monthly contact via Baby Grace. Some can make a difference with prayer, some with volunteer time, some with financial support, as all are needed to change the path many families are on. As the question goes, if not us, who? If not now, when? We are called to be Christ's hands and feet and called by the Lord to make a difference. Thanks be to God and the Lord Jesus Christ. And all God's people said,